did my best to imitate Kimberly and Labor when
Wow.
they were doing the eating.
Straight out like this. Increase that.
That's probably the most important thing, actually.
Did you?
Buzz was taking Floyd in for a colonoscopy, so the time for when we work out, and it's almost easier to get in on the driver's side than it is to
Yeah,
get in
yeah,
on the
yeah.
passenger side.
Well, it is 6:30,
Did nothing to have my right leg or my arm,
and
so.
we said we'd start the meeting at 6:30, so, by golly,
By God.
we'll call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. And roll call, please.
Jack May,
Here.
Jillian Cousins.
Here.
Johanna Marzinski, here. Sean Coons.
Here.
Jim Grabowska.
I'm here.
Connie Jones.
Here.
Okay. Introduction of visitors.
Angie McClinton.
Chrissy Drove.
Okay, welcome. First thing on our agenda is to, in fact, approve that very agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Positive recognition, number 2.
We've got 2 items for positive recognition. The first one is congratulations to the Cyclones of the Month, and they are for this month Nolan McReynolds, Paige Olinger, Abigail Street, Carolyn Schimick, Cale Anderson, and Brandon Barch. And then also thank you to Nicole Rulin and the junior class who volunteered with the Christmas Festival kickoff for Toys for Tots, as well as the distribution event. Their leadership and dedication is a definite asset to the Mankato Marine Corps League's Toys for Tots campaign. And just a note, I think later in the board packet, there is a note in there from the Toys for Tots program, thanking Nicole
That was nice.
and the kids for their work with that. I'll turn it over to Kelly for donations.
Okay, we received $1,205.12 from the Mankato Elks Lodge for the sophomore inclusion event. And we've received another $500 from the Minnesota Valley Civitan Club for that same sophomore inclusion event. And they went to the WOW Zone on February 1st or 2nd this month.
Okay, good. Maybe added after your copy, Tom, there's a positive recognition. Congratulations to Will Wellman and his campaign manager.
Oh,
Jaden
that's
Mearby.
right, yeah, I didn't see that one, but for, they're gonna be the mayor, or Will's gonna be the mayor for, Biztown when they go up in May. So,
Okay.
congratulations to Will for that,
And campaign manager Jaden Mearby.
correct,
How'd I do there?
right on.
Number 3, PTO report.
Alrighty. It's been a quiet couple months in PTO, but the board of directors met this past weekend to kind of talk about where we've been this fall and where we're going to go over the next year or so and things we have coming up. What we have done so far this year, recently, we did provide teacher meals for President's Day, and on our docket, we have planned teacher meals coming up for 2 nights of conferences, so that's kind of where we're at with appreciation and recognition. Food always goes a long way for recognition. A couple of upcoming expenses for us. We approved some mini grants. The first one is a 1st and 2nd grade field trip, and they'll be heading to Martin Luther College to see a play there, so hitting on the fine arts there. And a fun activity for the high school. We did this last year as well, as we purchased some prizes and some things to help them celebrate Pi Day coming up in March. So that's the other mini grant that we approved. And then we had some discussion around a spring family night, and we're still kind of waiting to hear where we're at with roller skates and if that's going to go through as a purchase this year or how fast that's going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, we've got some great ideas coming up for another family night, a way to get families together in our community. And amongst those, there was some open gym type activities, thrown around just as an idea, or possibly renting out Lake Crystal Rec Center or something like that, and just creating a space for our families to come together and have some fun together. So that's it. Do you guys have any questions for me? It's been a couple months since I've been here myself, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Number 4 is unfinished business. Anybody have something there?
Open forum.
Okay.
You got both. 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're flipped in our, okay, never mind.
4 is unfinished business.
Yeah,
All right.
3.
Everybody wants to be a chair.
Well, if there's any unfinished business or finished business, now would be the time when it's open forum.
Okay.
There we go.
We got to get it in.
That's for agenda items, and I haven't seen any requests to speak. So new business, number 6. It includes the consent agenda as always.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Any further discussion or desire to pull anything aside? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, additional special education paraprofessional position.
Just as an aside, that as a lead into this agenda item, I don't know if you noticed in the new business, but we had our current enrollment for this year and the projected enrollment for next year is, right now, the figure's at 700 kids. That's bigger than, the biggest since I've been here. So that figure is subject to change between now and the first day of school next year, but it doesn't appear that declining enrollment will be an issue for the board to deal with here in the next year or so, so that's good news. But those students that we are receiving in, also some of them do come with an IEP, which is a lead into number 7. 2 months ago, I think it was, that we approved the extra position, para position for the elementary, and we went about hiring a position for that. Typically, as the students progress, our goal anytime we put a student on an IEP is within the parameters of their disability to try to help them become as independent as possible with their learning, and that's the ultimate goal, so that we teach the kids and that they can function independently. As a result of that, kids gradually no longer need as intensive para support as they progress through the grade levels. So by the time we get to the high school level, we have far fewer paras at that level than we do at the elementary. However, due to some of the needs that we have at the high school, whether it be kids that we've had in the elementary that are transitioning into the high school, kids who are newly identified, have been assessed and qualified for special ed services for the first time, or kids that move into the district who have an IEP, we do have a need for an additional para position at the high school as well to finish out the rest of this school year. We're over the halfway mark by a long shot already, so the fiscal impact is not great. In addition, there is state and federal reimbursement for a portion of the position. It isn't 100% reimbursement. I think, is it 58%, Kelly, that we're looking
Yeah,
at?
about that, yeah.
So, and that depends on the disability area being served as well, or?
Yep,
Okay.
and we can do benefits with federal dollars and,
Yeah.
yep.
So we can offset a lot of that cost that comes in, and then when you factor in that this is only for the remainder of the school year, a portion of the school year left before we reassess the summer and see what our needs are for next year, the impact is minimal. If there's more information, Dusty, you want to add?
We probably have 35 to 40 kids on IEPs in the high school, and really with the equivalent of about 4 paras. We have 1 para that's a 1-to-1, and then 4 others. And trying to split that in between 6th grade levels and the different schedules that they have. We're running our para and our hopefully the kids are great, you know, it's not a lot of behavior issues, it's just they need some extra help, and we wanna make sure that we provide that for them.
Well, I'd move to approve the request.
Second.
Unanimous.
Sean. Okay, any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded.
It's not often that you get 4 seconds.
I said we should have a buzzer.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion?
That's how near
besides
and
that?
dear this is to us, is that we make sure this happens.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The FLMA request.
Ashley Miller has submitted a letter and request for the board requesting maternity leave from the spring, April 20th through the end of the school year. She would plan to return at the beginning of this coming school year, the 2021 school year. And is consistent with our contract and past practice. We're happy for Ashley, hope things go well, and I'm requesting board approval.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Long-term substitute.
In your packet is an application form, letter of application, and I think her resume is in there too, I
Yes.
believe.
Yep.
I think I saw that. For Elizabeth Wellman, and she will be the long-term sub for Ashley from April 20th to the end of the school year.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 10, extracurricular appointment.
The application materials are in your packet for the head volleyball coaching position, and the administrative team is recommending Amy Siegel, who is the B Squad volleyball coach this past season, and she's agreed to serve as the head coach for the 2021 volleyball season.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 11, varsity athletic uniforms.
Number 11 was the item that I had emailed the board about last week. I think on Thursday I sent that out. It had been on a board agenda this fall, later this fall, earlier this winter, I don't remember which month. And we pulled that because we had some additional questions. We sent it to the auditor to take a look at it, and then we had some other clarifications made by Nicholson Athletic. And as I stated in my email, it's fully compliant with the municipal contracting law. It's pretty standard contract that school districts are taking part in. And in talking to Mr. O'Donnell, we typically order about 2 sets of varsity uniforms a year, and traditionally we've been going with Nick as I stated in my email because of the quality, the service, and their competitive pricing. Some of the smaller vendors don't handle the brand of uniforms and can't handle the quality that we're looking for. So Nicholson's has by default, or just as a matter of practice, fit the bill for us. So the 3-year contract for them is low risk, but we get some benefits that accrue to the district and our student athletes. So as I stated, I think we shortened up the length of the contract, but if it goes well based on our past history, we might be crossing our fingers that they would offer us something like this again in the future.
I would make a motion to approve the contract from Nicholson's as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve this. Any further discussion? Okay.
Very competitive. Oh, okay.
So the clerk will show that.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 12, joint powers agreement.
This is the document in the agreement that I mentioned fairly frequently at our board meetings. This is a PSEO agreement between the St. Clair School and Minnesota State University Mankato. And what's unique about this and the advantage of doing this is that we claim the students. They allow us to claim them on our MARS, so we're able to capture all the revenue sources for them. And then when they enroll for PSEO, then the contracted amount is the amount that we would pay Mankato for the portion of the time that they're enrolled as a PSEO student. And again, that's different than our concurrent programs. PSEO is when kids leave the school
Right.
and go to the campus and take classes, college classes right at the campus. Concurrent is when our teachers teach a college course right here. And with the joint powers agreement, one of the bigger aspects that we're able to save is some of the referendum dollars. And so it's been a good deal for us and good deal for Mankato. However, when it's all said and done, we don't have that many kids going PSEO because the concurrent enrollment, or the concurrent enrollment classes have been overwhelmingly popular and supported by the students here. So it's in place in case we need it, and this is for the next school year going forward, so recommend approval.
So just really rough numbers, if you're able to guesstimate, what percentage of the state aid would we keep ultimately in this case? And is that different than it was 10 years ago? We used to be quite concerned about
It's mostly the referendum revenue, the local tax,
that we
that we
lose
were
or keep?
allowed, that we would keep as a result of this, I believe, isn't it?
And, yeah, and we've always had this type of agreement since I've been here. So I don't know if it, it had changed before that, but for at least 21 years, we've had this great agreement in place. And like Tom said, we really haven't had hardly any students in recent years. There were probably 5 years that we didn't have any. I know we looked it up not too long ago, but just because CIS is such an overwhelming,
I think this year we had two,
yeah.
and they just went for one course, one semester.
Mhm.
Simply, we didn't have that course here, and that's the career path that they want to go, so.
Yeah, otherwise I
And it
think
was
there had
first
been a big
semester,
gap.
and they're back here second semester,
Yeah.
full-time again.
And that was a physics course?
Physics, yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion on the joint powers agreement with Minnesota State University Mankato? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 13, MSBA Leadership Conference. Sharing time.
I remembered last time in this time, I forgot my stuff.
So as you recall, that was one of our snowstormy weeks.
Yep.
And so, often they say, of course, save the best for last in speakers, and I think we all went home for Friday morning because of the snowstorm coming and didn't hear the keynote speaker on Friday. And Jim and Connie and I were up there. I went up for the early bird session on superintendent evaluation Wednesday night. I didn't bring that material. I'm saving it for later.
For a work session. I had went to the early bird I did, it was the poverty simulation. It was a really unique experience. What they did was they had what it was like to really be poverty-stricken, be without transportation, be without a job, be without resources. And at the end of the month then, the goal was that you had paid your rent and you had your utilities, or you had enough money to go into the next month. And our little family, we were so proud because we had made it through that month, but then we got to talking as a group that really we had nothing to start the next month out. We were so proud that we had made it through that first month, but there was no resources. We had exhausted everything, and that this was real in the life of a lot of the families, and how kids can function in school when they're coming with no place to sleep, some were in homeless shelters, some were sleeping in their car. It was a very, very unique experience. They do go around and do these things that it's costly, I guess, but for different staffing groups and stuff too, like sometimes they'll go to a school for a teacher's workshop or whatever, just to get people to realize that what it really is all about. So that was really a very, very interesting experience, and it would be, if anybody ever has a chance to do that, it would be really eye-opening. You think you've got a good idea how tough it is, but you really don't when you're scrambling minute by minute, and you had to have a travel voucher because you didn't have a car, but it took energy to walk, so you could not go anyplace. If they caught you without a travel voucher, then you were penalized or reported or whatever, and yet you had to pay for the travel vouchers, and you had no money, and it was really a very interesting evening. So, but that was early bird that I had attended. So
I attended 2 sessions, but don't ask me the results anymore. First session that I attended had to do with teacher retention. It was a teacher out of Park Rapids pursuing his doctorate, and he was doing work on retention. It was good enough that I wrote Denise Specht, who is the president of EdMin, and suggested that they bring this guy around to share the information, but I just can't for the life of me remember all of that was involved. And the second piece was the initiatives in ISD 77. It's a collaborative effort between the district and the Diversity Council. So Bukata Hayes working with the school district with regard to equity and inclusion, and how they are. Most of it is professional development material through reflective practice with faculty and staff, and they're now moving into administrators. So both very, very interesting pieces, both very pertinent to what it is that we do in our schools and issues that we face, trying to keep teachers engaged and involved and wanting to stay, and also helping them deal with a diverse population. We don't have that kind of diversity here, but our students are certainly going to graduate and move into a diverse circumstance and diverse world, and the more that they can be helped to be successful once they leave, the better off they are.
The afternoon session that I went to on that Thursday was the, I forget what the title exactly, something like the challenges in being a woman superintendent. There were a couple, sorry I don't have their names either, but, and that was interesting, obviously. The percentage is still low, but climbing a little bit, of how many women are superintendents. And they still get kind of the things you might expect about things that are asked of them that wouldn't be asked, and demand, and so on.
I also had attended the Phase 4, which is the policy and engagement, and that was very interesting too. In fact, I've got a nice book that I can just leave for anybody that wants to look through. We obviously didn't cover everything, but there were a couple of things that they brought up that I was going to question. Do we have an unpaid meal debt policy? We do, okay, because they said you have to have one, and I assumed we did, but I didn't know, because the federal law says you have to have it, and the different things that they said can and cannot have in it, whether it's demeaning, or to offer an alternate meal, contact county services, that type of thing. And then the other thing they questioned was if we have a policy review committee, which we don't. We do the policy review, but they were saying that every policy has to be reviewed every 3 years unless it's listed as an annual review, and I think Katie keeps track of that for us as far as I could tell, but there was a lot of interesting, stuff in that, but I was trying to think, there was a couple other notes I'd made in here about some questions I had, I think. Oh, when they're talking about the adoption, if we adopt the new policy, it says that we have to have 3 meetings needed before we can adopt, so that it's open if people have questions or explanations, and I don't know if we've adopted any new policies lately that we went through that process or not.
Is that in statute or we have 2 readings for our policies.
Well, the
but-
MSBA model policy, and maybe ours is different, it says that she'll give notice of the thing and that they have to have 3 meetings. The 3rd meeting would be the one we approved, to have 2 meetings before that, giving people a chance to have feedback or input on it or whatever, so, there was just some interesting things, it was, pretty in-depth, there was a lot of discussion about a lot of stuff, it was kinda hard to keep track of all of it, but,
Do you remember the name of the person who led that one? Wasn't Bill Kaut, was it?
no,
You got Terry
Greg,
Morrow's on.
Terry Morrow and, Terry was, Terry and Greg Abbott did it, they split it up, kinda, so, but the book is here, so if anybody wants, if there's any questions about policies and stuff, but, that was the one question I had about whether we had, I thought we had a meal one, but I couldn't remember for sure. And, I went to another one that they talked about the, off-campus and on-campus effects of employees and students, and, what's chargeable, what's not, and the big thing is that it, to impose discipline for off-duty misconduct, there must be a nexus between misconduct and employees' work, so you have to be really careful that what they're doing, if it's impacting, what they're doing off-campus, if it's their own personal thing and it's not impacting their work situation, or like degrading the school, or degrading your superintendent to an outside group, that type of thing, that it's pretty, the law is pretty strict about what is and is not, and the same way with students, whether, if it's, they go home after school and they started a fracas at school, and then they go home and they're, Snapchatting or emailing or whatever, and it's continuing what started in school, then it's chargeable, but if it's something that's completely off, over the weekend that didn't have anything to do with school things, then you have to be really careful about pressing charges, so that was, there was a lot of talk about, policy for, marijuana, the federal policy, the medical is legal in Minnesota, it's not legalized at the federal level because we don't know what the, actual strength of the THC level is why that, the federal won't regulate it, where the state might, so, and Kelly, you have that school activity accounts all must be under board control. Yep.
And we fortunately did that right away.
Okay, yeah, I thought maybe we'd talk about that, but that was another thing. And then one of the other interesting question that a lot of people had was, for trap shooting, that it's a sport now, and they wondered, for team pictures, are the team photos with guns allowed if you have a trap shooting? And is there, if it is or is not, should there be a policy about it? And that was just kind of a open question out there that a lot of people, some people that had trap shooting in their schools, some of those board members said that, yeah, the kids, have their gun in like their senior class picture, their individual picture, but they didn't know if they were allowed in the team picture. So that was just something that's new, that's probably coming up for a policy or a discussion as more schools go to the trap shooting as a legalized sport. So it was for a couple days it was a lot of interesting information, but I think that's enough out of me for one day. I'm getting hoarse. Thank you.
That's all I have also. So number 14, speaking of policies and reading them and how many times. First reading, as you can see there, 506, 524, and 531. Student discipline, internet use, and Pledge of Allegiance. Number 15, elementary principals report.
This last month was pretty heavy into professional development. I attended my 3-day state winter institute for my Elementary Principals Association. And there were a lot of very, very good sessions this year. I did try to attend a lot on the social emotional learning and trauma-based instruction. And they had some very good sessions, both led by professional experts, and they also had a lot of sessions that were session where you could get ideas from other districts and find out what people are doing and what challenges they're facing there, and bring some ideas from people that are actually living it. And then on Monday, the 17th, we had our second snow makeup day, which was just made up by teachers. And so we had a professional development day. So our whole K-12 staff spent the morning. We brought in a speaker from Bethany, and they were willing to work with us since we host some of their student teachers. We did a little exchange where they sent some professional development our way, and did some learning about dyslexia. And then we also had Kip Link from the Regional Center of Excellence, which is kind of a principals support organization, an administrative organization. And he came in and did some work with cultural competency, which is part of our requirement for relicensure. And something that, quite frankly, is very important out here, because like you said, Jim, our kids are pretty sheltered and we don't experience a lot of diversity, but when we send them out into the real world, it's gonna hit them. And so, we're not doing our kids any favors by not going the extra mile to try to provide some understanding and exposure. So, other than that, we do have our kindergarten roundup coming up on Thursday, so we should have a little bit more solid numbers on where our kindergarten kiddos are gonna be once everybody signs on the line on Thursday. And we'll be able to start some planning for next year.
Go again. Number 16, high school principals report.
Don't have anything much to add, more than what's there, except, last board meeting, I talked about that issue with social media that we're having. That, I believe, has been taken care of, through some help with some individuals. We think we narrowed it down to who did it, and that person is no longer a student in our school district, by their choice. So hopefully we've got that taken care of, and it was a long time coming. I think it's been going on since early November. So other than that, if you have any questions on what I have down in my report, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Very good, thank you. Number 17, superintendent's report.
My report consists of the two documents that were in the board packet. One is from January from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and the other one was from the week before last from the MPCA as well. And both are good news, and were the things that we were kind of waiting for to hear back from them so that we could continue moving forward. The first document that we received in January was the approval of our response action plan and the construction contingency plan. And basically the MPCA looked at what our test results were and what we had planned to use that space for, and gave us a thumbs up for using it in that manner. And then the second letter that we received last week was the no association determination, which is an important one. As long as we follow the plan that we've submitted and complete the work under the watchful eye of the MPCA, any contamination that's out there won't be associated with the school district. It will be with previous owners. So it's kind of a step to absolve ourselves from any liability for the cleanup that takes place beyond what we're asking for in our construction contingency plan. So we have those filed away, and I contacted Mark Johnson from Braun Intertech, who worked with us, was the engineer that submitted the documentation to the MPCA for us, and just asked him what the next steps are so that we can continue improving that area going forward. I know that at the city council meeting, there was a question about the change in elevation and some of the water runoff issues that were created when they turned that into a auto recycling area. And we've kind of, that should be improved as we go about our process, because there's gonna have to be some fill taken out of there anyway. And then at that time, it'll be pretty efficient time to take care of, you know, if we have to put in a storm drain or something like that somewhere to redirect water, we can do that easily enough. But the residents back there have been pretty patient, and hopefully now we'll get the thumbs up so that at least surface level stuff we can take care of and clean up out there so it isn't such an eyesore, and then kind of take it from there, so.
Is there something in there that had to be done within a year of that letter? Did I read that somewhere?
Maybe, I'll check it.
It seemed like it said something about it had to be done within a year, and I was just curious where that year started.
I'll look and get back to you on that one.
I'm glad to hear that it's good news, because I couldn't quite tell.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is kinda.
You're reading through it and you're thinking,
Yeah.
what did I just read?
Um,
I
And
didn't
then,
know how, if it was out of the ordinary, onerous, or not, and then at the end, it's a bunch of, and by the way, we, the people writing, are not responsible for anything.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's pretty customary for the MPCA, so, not a big worry.
Sean, is this if the implementation report will not be submitted within 1 year of the date of this letter?
Yeah.
Is that what you were?
Yeah.
Okay, then please,
Yeah.
simply, please notify the MPCA project staff of the status of the development.
Yeah.
So,
And that's a good question, and I would anticipate that's the kind of paperwork that we would work with Mark Johnson and Braun Intertech, so.
Because then would Braun be like the manager of the project? Because they have to have somebody there and
Yeah.
test all the soil and put
Yeah.
in plastic.
Yeah.
So they would be kind of they
Yeah.
would run it.
Yeah,
That's for the getting the contaminated out.
yeah. You could switch, I mean, you could go with an.
Well, no, I just wanna make sure, that if we're using them, that they're the
Yeah.
ones that are kinda signing off to say, okay, this dirt
Yeah.
had this many chemicals and it's in this plastic.
Yeah. That's what they do,
Yeah.
and that's kinda why we, yeah. So, the other item is, our transportation, contract renewal. We, are about 2 months ahead of where we were 4 years ago when we went out and did the bidding for the, transportation contract. And, there was a step I had forgotten about, and we're taking care of that in the office. I'll have, once that's resolved, I'll have Mick Waltzberger, our school attorney, review our specs. And then we'll be able to start, after that point, advertising for bids. And with the transportation, it does follow the formal bidding requirement that's part of the municipal contracting law in Minnesota. So it's very formal and very specific what those procedures are. And just a reminder, the law in Minnesota for transportation contracts allows you to contract for 2 years, and then the board has the option, as long as you have the compensation somehow referenced within the contract, you have the option of renewing for 2 more years, 1 year at a time. And that's what we've done since I've been here, and predating me as well. So the big hurdle right now is just to make sure our specs are complete, and we're working on that. It's a longer process because it has to be, you have to advertise for bids. So many days have to elapse before you can have your bid opening, and then it has to have board approval, and part of the transportation contracting law allows you for direct negotiations then, once the bids have come in, and you've awarded it to a contractor, then you can sit down and start negotiating directly with them again. And we've done that since I've been here as well. But that's not a quick process, so we'll get it started, and then, obviously we want it done before the next school year starts, but it'll be at a point where the board and Tim can continue on and just kind of finish things up. So there was another thing that I thought of today, but didn't write it down, that I was excited about, but I forgot what it was. And,
Awfully exciting.
yeah, I know, and so I'll think of it about 2 o'clock this morning. And other than that, that's all I have.
Very good. Any questions on any of that? Number 18, board reports.
I was to the city council meeting, and as Tom referenced, there was some question about the drainage off of the out-of-zone property over there. The city, some of the constituents were kind of making sure if we were aware, and I had mentioned to Tom, and he said that yes, that Ron was aware of it, and that they would be looking into and watching the drainage and the tiling as we get into the project, so that we can reassure the city members that we are watching that, and that is on our agenda. They did approve the charitable gambling permit for the Athletic Backer St. Clair Days raffle. They're working on getting bids and getting together to do the Mill Street street project. They've got a Boy Scout or proposed Eagle Scout project that they tabled. Simon Cruz is proposing one, but they're getting some more information on that. The census update is set to be mailed out for mid-March, or you can do it online. That'll be coming up, so kind of be watching for that. And anything else, Duke, that
That Simon Cruz, I don't know how many people have ever heard of or seen him, but he wants to try to get, it's called Gaga Ball or something. He wants to try to propose trying to get that down at the park. And Mapleton has it. It's where you put the ball in there and you just throw it around. I guess it's something like dodgeball, but safer supposedly. But then the thing is, they would have to bring their own balls and stuff like that. It's kind of like you're in a square, it's probably about this tall. So, and like Mapleton has one over there, and they really like it, so. But he has 2 other projects that he could do too, besides that, so. We'll get some more information this month, and then we'll see from there, so.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
I attended the MVED meeting, so the takeaways there were, so MVED's business office is currently working with each district's MARS coordinators to refine the enrollment numbers in order to obtain more accurate info throughout the year. This info is going to help MVED ensure they are providing sufficient services to the students across all districts and allow MVED to see where staff needs to be added and or adjusted. They too are starting to implement some of the MSBA's model policies. They don't really have a lot of policies in place. They have handbooks, so now they're gonna have the policies. So we did do first readings of the first 5 policies, and we will go to approve those in April. We approved the educational district agreement, and they also wanted to make the districts aware of the advisory council, the special education advisory council. So each school is required to have one. St. Peter has their own, but InVEDS is going to, they currently hold theirs annually on the 2nd Tuesday in February at 4. But they're interested in forming a more formal group to meet more often if there's enough interest. And the purpose of the group is advocacy for special education programs and students. That's all I got.
Good, thank you. Anyone else?
Athletic Backers, they'll be looking for directors, so if anybody knows anybody that might be interested, we're always looking for people. The raffle, we started selling tickets now. We've been at the home games. kinda wrapping that up for the drawing will be in September. Concession stands is winding down, I think we got 2 or 3 home events left, and then that'll kinda be wrapped up for the year. We have a meeting tomorrow, so it's been a while.
Two separate, there's a raffle for St. Clair Days.
There's a raffle for St. Clair Days, and then we're doing the cash raffle, which will be held in September. Those tickets are $25 a ticket, we're selling 500, and the top, we'll be giving away approximately, I don't know the exact number, $7,000 in cash in September.
So for everyone, whoever said, I'd rather do such and such instead of going to the state fair.
Here's your
Here's our
opportunity,
chance, huh?
because this is gonna make up about half of what we make at the state fair, as long as we sell out, which, once we get there closer, I think we will, but. Yeah, and then we talked with Brad at the meeting, about having the coaches stop in once in a while to a meeting here and there, just kinda give updates. And he was gonna talk to that, and I think he was also gonna talk to the gifts and PTO and, kinda get everything so we all are aware of what each other is doing, so that's still in the process.
All right. Is that it? Looks like it's time to look at the next regular board meeting, being March 18th, right after St. Patrick's Day. In this room.
I have a question. How's the Hilly thing going this meeting?
Yeah, the 18th is a Wednesday, 23rd is the Monday.
I think it's going pretty well.
Maybe
I
it was
just,
last year.
somebody just mentioned, when I talked to the custodians, which is their last step,
Yeah, the 18th is the Wednesday, 23rd is the next meeting.
people were generally pretty happy with.
I just hadn't heard it, so good or bad.
Looks like March
There's some
23rd.
tweaking
Yeah,
that
that's what's in
needs
our
to be
calendar anyways.
done yet, but,
Process.
St. Patrick's Day would have been more fun. Yes, we didn't. Good call. And at this time, for anyone who'd like to speak to something that's not on the agenda, it's open forum.
Students have any questions about anything we're talking about or what we're doing? No?
I hear there's extra credit points if you ask questions.
If you ask a
Yeah.
question, you get extra points.
automatic A.
Actually, I was more punitive. I was gonna have the two that came late come and address the board and explain things.
Well, at the city council, that's when we heard that there's extra points, because one of the students asked a question and said that there's 3 bonus points if they ask a question, so,
When do I get out of here? Is
yeah,
it
how
over
long,
yet?
yeah. Is this how boring it always is? Well, we're glad you came, thanks, ladies.
I'm going to move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries at 7:19.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.